All right, welcome to Bet the Edge special selection Sunday night edition. Drew Dinsick somewhere else in the world, different backdrop, which is good. Vaughn Dalzell, I'm Jay Croucher. We're going to talk about the bracket and takeaways from it, bets out of that, and then we'll also talk about the conference tournaments and what we made of them. So let's start there, gentlemen. Vaughn, start with you. What was your big takeaway, I guess, from the weekend?
I'm very happy that the VCU Rams got their outright win over those Dayton Flyers. Jay, I got to rub your nose in that one a little bit. But was anticipating Purdue getting this one seed now that UCLA lost the Pac-12 championship, had multiple injuries, not just one injury, lost that game to Arizona outright. So that was really the biggest news, I think, that Marcus Sasser getting injured for Houston, not playing against Memphis, getting upset in the AAC championship. What's that do for Houston? Because last year they didn't have Marcus Sasser in the NCAA tournament. They went pretty far. So breaking down their bracket will be interesting. But very great weekend. March Madness is officially here, gentlemen. Drew, how are you doing?
Well, I came unprepared. I'm in the library here. I thought we were talking about the Academy Awards leaks. We're not betting the? I guess not. No, we're talking college basketball. Also sweating out some Indian Wells. I have a nice plus money price on Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, who is right now up a set on Karin Khachanov. Yeah. Foki as he's known. No, I'm kind of excited to break this down with you guys. Oh, we're getting some interesting seeding here that's hurting my opinions. Oh man, wow. Okay. So far there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. I think, comment on the weekend real quick. Don't overreact to anything that happened in the conference championships other than injuries. Injuries are paramount and super important because, guys who got banged up who are not going to be 100% come tournament time, it drastically changes how you would price any of those teams, particularly you mentioned UCLA. And then the flip side is if a team kind of exceeded expectations, like Penn State, for instance, right? Like getting the cover in the Big Ten championship, that doesn't move the needle at all. Penn State is still a terrible team, and they are going to be in deep trouble in round one against a mighty Texas A&M, who I don't hold their performance against in the SEC championship against them. So I guess just overall, don't overreact to what you saw in conference tournament weekend, because the information that you have from sort of the final month of the regular season, I think, is worth weighting more highly than how these teams performed in sort of the do or die, because motivations were different, right? Incentives were different for every team. Kansas didn't need to win the Big 12 to get a 1 seed, right? Texas did need to win the Big 12 to get a preferential seed as a 2. So, I think you need to kind of keep that in mind as you're evaluating some of these results.
Okay, well, in saying that, let's overreact to conference championship weekend. Start with the Big 12, where Texas, a team who really kind of screwed me, basically, by not getting the 1 seed and winning the regular season, which I had a decent-sized bet on. The 2-point loss to TCU lives long in the memory. But, yeah, they cruise past Kansas. And I think that, and obviously hope that Bill Self recovers and is okay. But I think it's going to be it's always difficult to quantify coaching and the impact game to game and the in-play impact of a coach. And I think that this will be potentially, something that contributes to that sample. There's obviously more important things at play. But Vaughn, what did you make of how the Big 12 played out, given that it is, the best conference?
I think Texas, it was no surprise they won, in my opinion. I think they're very live outright to win this whole entire tournament. There's so much more experience than they were in years past, and we were super excited about the additions they made last season, but they really let us down in so many ways. But I think Texas, with 3 seniors in the lineup, 2 seniors off the bench, they got guys like Marcus Carr, Dylan Dessou, Jabari Rice, who's been awesome, and Christian Bishop and company. So I think they're one of the deepest teams in the country, 7th most D1 experience on their roster. And like you said, Joe, they're the deepest conference in the Big 12. So I definitely think they're live to win outright. And one team I'm not going to put any cookies in the jar with is the Iowa State Cyclones. Yes, they looked great in the Big 12 championship, but I'm so tired of this team, and I think they're a team that's liable to lose in round 1, despite how great they just looked. And like Drew said, don't take what they just did this past week too much into account, because Iowa State needed to climb the ranks. after failing the regular season, end of the regular season. So,
yeah, unfortunately, I'd have bet on Iowa State as well to be the 1 seed in the Big 12, and so I had to watch a lot of Iowa State basketball, and watching that offense brutal for an over is it wasn't fun, and I'd like that time back. Drew, was there any result, any team from the weekend that made you change your opinion of them outside of injuries?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to pay attention to the Duke Blue Devils.
I knew you were going to say it.
That was it. I mean, was there a more impressive team this weekend? I don't think so. I know the ACC is down this year. Everyone knows that. But their path was not easy. They had to go through Pittsburgh, who they mauled, and then convincing win against a very good Miami team, albeit Miami suffered an injury. And then they grinded out a complete different clash of styles against a UVA team. So 3 very different types of games, and 3 convincing wins. I think they trailed for a matter of minutes for the entire tournament. And the fact that they're healthy, and the fact that this team, it's very tough to kind of come up with a true price for them, just because they have a good mix of experience and youth, and there's not a huge track record of how much they've played together. So Duke has to be upgraded, I think. And that said, if you're building a bracket and you're trying to be a contrarian, you're not going to win by putting Duke far into this tournament, because everyone's onto this. This is not world-shattering news. When Duke plays well, the world knows.
But how about their defense, though? I think that's probably been the most impressive thing about the Blue Devils, Drew. And I almost sent you a text this week, and it said they're playing way better defense than Virginia.
They were.
And this is what the Cavaliers do. But, yeah, Duke in their last 12 games ranked number 13 in the country defensively and 14th overall. So playing the best basketball of the season at the right time.
Us Duke alum, we all wonder how many more championships we would have if Coach K had retired earlier. This is really it's we all wonder if he had kind of expired a little bit there past his expiration date. But I'm being a little tongue in cheek, but there was definitely text shades where we had talked about should have K have retired previously. But that said, Shire, incredible job. And I think they are going to be very well rewarded by the tournament that is going to be inclined to put Duke in a spot where they will make a run, because I don't know who else is really driving ratings in this field. Kansas, obviously, are defending champion, but with the questions swirling about Bill Self's health and just the way that they played down the stretch, it's not guaranteed that Kansas is going to be around for a while. And outside of that, this has been somewhat of a rough year for the Blue Bloods. Just not a lot of kind of name draw in terms of teams who are expected to do well. It's, the teams that we are, looking at who may make some noise in this tournament are teams that, aren't always coming off the tip of your tongue when you're talking about elite college basketball programs. Yep.
And so, Drew, Duke now by Ken Pom overall in the season, 21st. Obviously, they've played above that of late. Are you waiting more with the recency? Like, where do they sit in your power rankings now?
Yes. So they are higher than 21st for me by a lot. Yeah. But they suffer from sort of the key, kind of Achilles heel that I think a lot of teams that are expected to do well suffer from, which is they can't create turnovers on defense. And so I think seeding is ultimately going to matter here. If I were the committee, I would put them in, I would put them in the region of death, just so that you would have fun matchups and, kind of draw a little bit of excitement there. Honestly, any team that they would run into that is shooting hot has the potential to knock them out. So realistically, it's I would put them clearly in the top 16 of teams as far as the power rating goes. And I think we need to see who they match up against. Obviously, as a Duke fan, I am praying that we get a 4 or 5 type of ranking in the region with Purdue.
You guys just got your seed, actually. You want to know who Duke is playing?
We'll save it for live reactions, because I want to be surprised.
Okay, there we go. Well, let's start with the South region. Alabama, the number 1 seed there. Vaughn, any big picture reactions to any of the matchups or any of the paths out of the South?
I was definitely intrigued, and Drew and I were saying this could be probably the chaos region for sure. Looking at Alabama, sure their path's going to be mighty fine with Maryland and West Virginia in their way. College of Charleston, live to maybe get an upset over San Diego State as that 5 and 12 seed. I think that's a very intriguing matchup. Charleston's had so much success this season, and tied with the best record in all of college basketball, actually. But I look down a little lower and say Creighton and Arizona are the two teams that I look at and might be able to run away and make it out of the bottom of the South region here. Drew, I know we were hoping Arizona get that 1 seed earlier in the year to get the best price on them, but I love this region for them. They get Princeton, then Missouri, then Utah State, two teams that they could definitely beat up on with their size and offensive ability, and then potentially Baylor, Creighton, Santa Barbara, NC State. We know Baylor has been like a fish out of water lately. They're not the Baylor Bears of old for us. So them getting a 3 seed, I think, is very telling right now. So I do like the top 2 seeds here, Arizona and Alabama, the 1 and 2, to kind of control this. But the rest of the bracket, chaos.
Troy, what do you think?
The South is the weakest region. And we haven't even seen all the regions yet. But I can already tell you it's going to be the weakest region because almost every single seeded team in here has massive red flags. There is no team that really fits the profile of a champion, any of these single seeded teams. Baylor is a 3 seed, huge question marks about them winning round 1 against UCSB. Santa Barbara, people may not realize they dealt with some injuries and had some roster stress in the month of February, but they came full strength into their tournament, won convincingly, and they are going to be a very tough test. I think Baylor is absolutely on upset alert for round 1. Similarly, I don't have Creighton, Missouri, Virginia, or Alabama, for that matter, rated as bona fide potential championship contenders. Alabama, I know, is SEC champions. People will probably gloss, very, very, very warm on them considering how that the season ended for this team. But they've possessed some of the key issues that I would caution anyone to get super involved with when it comes to backing a team in the tournament. They were the 303rd best team in college basketball at creating turnovers on defense, which means one hot shooting team, and this could be Maryland in the Sweet 16 or in the round of 32 for all that matter. One hot shooting team could pop these guys and end their dance relatively early. I don't think Alabama is a scary 1 seed whatsoever. They look susceptible to upset early, and I think if I'm going to take a shot on any of the single digit seeds in this bracket, it's going to be San Diego State. I have San Diego State as a top 10 team in college basketball, both over the balance of the season and over the last month of the season. So it's not even just a matter of they banked, good statistics early. They're playing well now. And I think San Diego State, they definitely have the characteristics that really get you excited if you are trying to, find a team in that 4 to 5 ranking that can make some noise during the Sweet 16. So I think ultimately in my bracket, I'm going to have the Aztecs coming out of the South.
I think that's pretty interesting. They San Diego State had out of all the mid majors, you would say not the Big East, the ACCs, those type of conferences, of course. San Diego State had the toughest strength of schedule this season, Drew. So that definitely prepares
The
you.
Mountain West was nasty last year. They were nasty this year, and San Diego State still did it. They finished 9-1 down the stretch. Really, really solid last month of the season for these guys. I have them as the number 1 defense in the country, and this is adjusted for strength of opponent, and a lot of that is weighted. I'm weighting recent results more favorably than stuff we saw in November, December. If you go season long, my number 1 defense is Tennessee, but they're not playing nearly as well lately as they were earlier in the season. So right now, the number 1 defense in this bracket is San Diego State Aztecs, and they are a 5 seed in a very weak region. So I think they can punch their ticket to Houston for the Final Four.
There you go.
Don't sleep on Brandon Miller and Bama. That's all I'm saying. Don't sleep on Brandon Miller and Bama.
Yeah. He's going to go to sleep in Sweet 16.
Drew mentioned that Baylor live to get upset in round 1 against UC Santa Barbara. Baylor 11-point favorites. Vaughn,
11?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's the second-ranked
number.
offense against the 163rd ranked defense.
That closes under double digits. I'll tell you right now.
Okay.
I know some heavy players that absolutely love the. Is it the Gauchos? I can't remember who Santa Barbara. I think it's the Gauchos. They love the Gauchos in some of the professional players who play college basketball. So that closes under double digits. I think.
All right.
They've won 7 straight. Yeah,
Producer
the Gauchos have
even
won 7
chimed in the
straight.
chat. Yeah, ridiculous line apparently. Plus 11. There you go. Load up.
It opened at 10. Opened at 10 and 10.5. I saw in some places. So it looks like people are playing Baylor.
That's a head fake, Vaughn. Classic.
Yeah.
You see this every year. Numbers come up. They get head fake because you want the key number of 10 in your pocket. So that's why you head fake it up to 11.
All right, brilliant. Let's talk about the Midwest, where no surprise, Houston are the 1 seed. Vaughn, what do you make of this region?
All right, let's go here to Houston. Definitely worried about the Marcus Sasser injury and the liability for them. We were joking around a little bit about what there could be upsets here with the Big Ten, some Big Ten teams. Iowa Hawkeyes are underdogs to Auburn already. See Auburn's laying 1.5 or 2. Definitely like the Tigers there in that 8-9 matchup that everyone's always scared to usually bet because it's always the toughest usually. You got Miami and Drake. Interesting because I feel like Miami is stronger this season down low, but I'm not sure if they're going to be a team that I can really trust here as a 5 seed. And another Big Ten team is Indiana. The Hoosiers really, really, really let me down in the Big Ten tournament, getting upset by Penn State. There's been a lot of times this season that they've played down to their competition. So getting Kent State out of that draw is certainly interesting because Kent State is a great offensive team. So really that top half of the bracket is really interesting. I kind of like all the lower seeds, Auburn, Drake, and Kent State. And, of course, as previously mentioned, Iowa State's a complete fade, whoever they get as their playing opponent. So looking forward to get my money back on the Cyclones as well, Jay.
Nice. Drew, Houston still plus 600 on PointsBet, outright favorite, just narrowly edging Alabama, Kansas, Purdue. Do you agree with that? Does the bracket change how you feel about Houston?
So 2 things very much scare me about Houston. The first is that they play at an incredibly slow tempo, which means your margin for error is that much narrower, right? I think, I haven't really seen them have to come back or be able to come back very often. The one test we've seen recently is the Memphis game today. And obviously, they just didn't have the goods. They were even getting some favorable whistles. It didn't matter. They did not have the goods to come back. And so they do strike me as the team that does not exactly have the right makeup for a comeback if the going gets tough. They can force turnovers. That's important. So they're definitely not out of a game. And I think, defense is obviously very solid. They're not going to be an easy out. That's going to take an A+ performance from a good team to oust them. But the injury concerns are real. And I think I was kind of surprised with their draw from the committee. I thought the committee was going to make it very tough for them to get out of their region because the Final Four is in Houston. Right. And so it's a little bit crazy if you give them a soft region and then they get to the Final Four and they're basically playing home games. And so I am somewhat shocked to say that even though I declared already that the South was going to be the weakest region, the Midwest is also quite weak. Not a lot of really true standout teams here. And in fact, this is going to blow you away probably. Houston right now I have in the top 4, but falling. Texas I have, knocking on the door. They're the 5th best team. The next best team in this bracket, and this is with margin. It's not Xavier. It's not Miami. It is Drake. Drake is excellent, and they got way underseeded as a 12. This is sort of quintessential committee getting a little too cute with their underseeding teams to the 12 so that they have the 5-12 upsets. I am very excited to see how this market opens up because I think Drake is going to be a very hot play, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is kind of lands in the pick'em-ish range, particularly considering the Miami injury status. Miami is 3.5 point favorites or dogs?
Favorite. Miami's a 3.5 point
Okay,
favorite.
see, that's wrong team favored.
I mean,
Well, it's already started
they
to get
look
back.
great. They look great in their conference tournament. They had 3 wins of all 10-plus points. I mean, they rolled in the conference championship. So I don't hate that at all. I think Miami, they look better on paper than they were last year, but I don't know if I'm sold on them completely. So I definitely like the Drake look.
Yeah, Drake was not great to start the season, but over the last month of the season, they are playing the 8th best basketball in all of college basketball. They are the 8th best team, which is absolutely amazing considering they've been playing against weak opponents, but they're doing it in a way that also portends to tournament success. They have currently 13th best offense, 21st best defense, but they're basically balanced across the board. Their only weakness that I can see is they're not getting to the free throw line, especially often. And that shouldn't really hurt them in a 5-12 matchup. It's definitely not going to hurt them against Indiana if Indiana can even beat Kent State. The tournament committee loves to do this where they have that one region that completely falls apart and you have a 12 versus 13 in the round of 32. This looks like that one here where you could see Drake versus Kent State in the round of 32 and then Drake moving on to a Sweet 16 matchup against Houston. Now, if Drake really does take care of business and they beat Miami convincingly, and let's say they played Indiana in the round of 32 and they beat them convincingly, they could be a little bit overpriced going against a Houston team that is legitimately good. So I'm not ready to call Houston dead at all in that type of a matchup, but I think in the Sweet 16, I would look at Houston versus Drake, and on the bottom half of the bracket here, almost certainly Xavier versus Texas. I think Xavier is the clear class of their little subsection, and then Texas, as we've already talked about, they're going to have an interesting matchup in round 2 against Texas A&M, but they're definitely better. So I think Texas ultimately gets to the Sweet 16, and a Texas versus Houston for a right to play a Final Four in the state of Texas would be pretty fun. Because Texas, of course, basketball school. We all know this.
All right. Let's go to the West. Vaughn, Kansas, the 1 seed. But the most interesting game to me here is St. Mary's VCU. I've got a friend who's holding a incredibly large ticket on St. Mary's at 100-1 to go all the way, which, it's 40-1 now. So a little bit of value on that. St. Mary's are 4.5 point favorites over your VCU Rams, Vaughn. Looks like the 4.5 is getting backed. Any opinion on that game, and what do you think of the West overall?
I like VCU. Definitely like VCU in that spot, but I like the under probably better, to be honest with you. Both those teams play incredibly slow. They force turnovers. They make you take very tough shots. Even saw VCU against Dayton struggle in the first half. Neither team could hit the side of a barn from 3. VCU is a very streaky team, though, but St. Mary's, you question who they've played all season, who they really beat. But I like VCU in that spot. So they're definitely going to be one of my Cinderellas. But the problem is they run into UConn there in the next round. And UConn, like Xavier, has been playing tremendous basketball over the last 2 or 3 weeks there. So I'm definitely intrigued what they could do. But let's talk about Northwestern, Jay. The Wildcats, are they good? Or are they not? Because we're still trying to figure it out. They're one of the only teams in the Big Ten that had a winning record on the road at neutral courts. They get a 7 seed against Boise State, and they'd have to take on UCLA here as a 2. And we'll see what UCLA, how they overcome injuries, but they were definitely man down against Arizona, but still played a tremendous game. So, Northwestern may be the wildest pick as a 7 seed to make some noise, but I kind of feel that way. But, Gonzaga, clearly my favorite team out of this conference. Don't have to tell you how great the Bulldogs have been playing.
Vaughn, can you quantify make some noise on Northwestern? What exactly are they going to do? It's 1.5 point Boise State and then playing UCLA?
They're 1.5 point dogs against Boise State. Wow.
Yeah,
how often? So Jay, as a former points bet employee, and you having all the sports betting information in your head, when you see a line like that with a 7 seed's an underdog, you're just taking the 10 seed right away, right?
Well, I try not to kind of just bet on hard and fast rules. I try and avoid that and encourage people to. But it sounds like you like Boise State, Drew.
I like Boise State in that one. I like the Mountain West in general. I think they're going to have a great tournament. Games being played in Sacramento. So Northwest, come on out, West boys. Similarly for St. Mary's, oh no, that game is in Albany. They sent St. Mary's to Albany to play VCU as the higher seeded team. That's not great. But you know who that does help? UConn. Guys, the West is the region of death, and it is not close. This is an absolutely loaded region. I know we've talked about UCLA and they are struggling from injuries. That does not change the fact that they are still a very good team. And in fact, 4 of my top 7 teams in terms of current performance over the last month of the season, how have you been playing? 4 of the top 7 are in the West. You want to guess the order of those 7? There's a number 1, a number 2, a number 6, and a number 7. Vaughn, do you have any guesses as to who the number 1 team over the last month in the country is?
I want to say it's Gonzaga's 1 and UConn is 2.
Gonzaga's 1 and UConn is 2. That's right.
Yeah. Let's go. Number 3 would have to be, I don't want to say UCLA.
It is UCLA. It is. And Kansas is
4.
So basically, in terms of current performance, current heat index, Kansas, the 1 seed, is the 4th best team in this region. Now, we shouldn't be super surprised that the committee did this because they don't like to give the defending champ an easy path, especially because if you remember well, Kansas won last year because their path was extremely easy. Like that was a very, very, very they benefited from a very imbalanced bracket. This year, it looks like the committee has given Kansas pretty much a free pass to the Sweet 16, which will be contested in Las Vegas. But then the 2 matchups that they're going to have in Vegas, Kansas versus UConn, and then Kansas Gonzaga, or Kansas UCLA, like, oh my goodness gracious, or UConn UCLA, or UConn Gonzaga. As kind of mentioned, I would lean UConn Gonzaga because you're going to get a little bit of contrarian points for going with those 2 seeds in this region. Any of those matchups, that is going to, in fact, the prices for the tickets for those games in Vegas have already gone up. I promise you. Like, this is going to be an unbelievably loaded Sweet 16 region in Vegas. And I think they basically said, Kansas, you're not getting out of the West. Sorry. Because beating UConn, turning around, and then taking on the winner of Zags UCLA, that's absolutely brutal. This does have the whiffs of UConn gets through just on the basis of they might be the best team, and or Gonzaga finally punches their ticket because they could catch UConn coming off of a very hard-fought win against Kansas and then punch their ticket to a Final Four, which would be fascinating because Gonzaga is absolutely sleeping right now. I'm not sure why people don't realize how well this team is playing. They moved on from the cancer that was Chet Holmgren, and here we are now, a new, better team. I'm being facetious, obviously. I love Chet Holmgren. I want to see him play in the NBA badly. But in seriousness, though, in a year where college basketball is this flat, the fact that Gonzaga hasn't gotten more steam in terms of people thinking this could be their year is surprising to me.
Okay, well, let's talk about another something that you hate, Drew, which is Purdue. They headline the East region as the 1 seed. Vaughn, what do you make of this region? Do you think that there are any teams in particular that are going to run past Purdue?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying Purdue, I don't want them to be a 1 seed, but after what's happened the past couple of days, I totally understand why they are a 1 seed in all situations. But having 2 freshman guards, bringing back only like 30% of their minutes last year, having a very experienced team with guys like Jaden Ivey, Trayvon Williams, definitely think they're susceptible to being the first number 1 seed upset. But I like Kentucky to destroy Providence. I see that's a 3-point spread, Jay. Give me the Wildcats all day. Providence was a team that barely even made a tournament after the past 7 games, how they played. You definitely see Kansas State there matching up with Kentucky in the second round for what could be the most entertaining game of all. But I think Marquette is the best team in this region, along with Duke. I think these are the 2 best teams here as a 2 and a 5 seed. And if you're looking for quite the upset, I think Louisiana Raging Cajuns are going to give your Tennessee Vols. I say your Tennessee Vols, Jay, because you mentioned them months ago. But I think they're going to go run for the money. They're very good defensively. They rebound as one of the best rates in the country. Tennessee defends the 3 very well. But Louisiana shoots the 3 very well. So they can knock down their 3s, and Tennessee not having Ziegler, their best ball distributor and point guard. Louisiana might be that upset as a 13 seed there. So I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. My Tennessee Vols. Interesting.
It's pretty, yeah. I think pretty
Branded.
funny that the committee gave Vaughn's Vermont Catamounts the 2 seed.
They're going to get destroyed.
Oh wait, they got the 15 seed. Vermont's a 15 seed. What? No way. This is ridiculous. Why are we doing this?
Not the same cats. Not the same cats.
Okay, fair enough. Well, whatever the case is, Marquette obviously got pretty, decent reward here. After winning a very tough, hard-fought Big East championship. They look like they have a pretty clear path to the Sweet 16, although Michigan State, for whatever it's worth, does overperform every year Tom Izzo in this tournament. I don't know what he tells his guys, but they do tend to play above their talent level. So Michigan State's certainly not out of it as a 7th seed to get to the Sweet 16. The rest of this bracket looks super-duper chalky to me. I think there is going to be chalk across the entire first round. 1, 8, 5, 4, 6, 3, 7, 2 all have decent margin over their opponents. Purdue facing a true test against the Memphis team that is playing extremely well right now. Memphis, I don't have them rated. Oh no, they are in my top 10. Yeah, Memphis right now I have number 9. Purdue I have 13th. So we could potentially see a wrong team favored in the second round with the 1-8, which is going to be a fascinating mark to see how that opens. Purdue, for those of you who are like, why do you hate the Big Ten? Why do you hate Purdue? Like, all they did was win. All they've done is exceed expectations all season. Sure, you only lost 5 games. Sure, you have the player of the year in Zach Edey. Relying on a big as your primary offense in the tournament is not a recipe for success. And on top of all of that, the Big Ten wildly overrated this season. They were overrated last season, but they actually had some good teams. This year, they're just flat out overrated. They cannot force turnovers. We were joking about how Alabama was 300th in the country in terms of forcing turnovers on defense. Purdue, 330th. Did you even know there were 330 teams in college basketball? I'm learning that now, looking at the numbers. Like, that's unbelievably low. So all it takes is one team that's shooting well. Memphis comes to mind as that potential team, and they are in deep trouble. This Purdue team is not long for this tournament. And I think even if they do come through, it's going to be on the basis of, luck more so, that they don't face a team that's shooting well on a given night, more so than they're actually being deserving of a 1 seed. Duke, I think, is set up well for some fun matchups here to come through to at least the Sweet 16. Duke-Memphis would be a fun matchup. Duke-Purdue, I would love to see what kind of price would open. Duke probably opens as a 2.5, 3-point favorite in that contest. And then on the bottom half, I like Vaughn's shout about Kentucky. I think Kentucky absolutely comes through past Providence and Kansas State, makes a Sweet 16 here where they would play either Marquette or Michigan State. You could have a very blue bloody type of Eastern bracket here when it's all said and done for the Sweet 16, where you have the likes of Duke, Kentucky, Michigan State, and Memphis all in the Sweet 16 in the East. That would be a lot of fun, and not a super strong or difficult bracket, but this one looks the most chalky to me. I just think they kind of put all of the lower seeded teams that don't really have a chance all kind of landed in the East, from what I can tell you.
Yeah, I'm seeing you gave Memphis a lot of love there, and they match up well with Purdue, but Florida Atlantic,
they're tough. Yeah,
only opened up as a +1.5 dog, and they also have a 7'1" center. So I'm not even surprised that the committee, potentially matching up a second round, because both those teams, I feel like, give Purdue serious issues. So I will be fading Purdue no matter whichever of those 2 teams they play.
I don't really understand the Florida Atlantic love. They closed as dogs to UAB today, right? Or was that yesterday?
Yeah,
I know they won convincingly. Like, they played a great game. Like, congratulations, you won your conference. But yeah, they, to me, are kind of in more like they're properly seated, but they're like in like the 30 to 35 range. Whereas Memphis right now, I have flirting with the top 10 the way they've been playing over the last month of basketball.
Yeah, Florida Atlantic beat one team in the tournament all season. That was Northern Kentucky. So we'll see what happens.
It looks like the opener on Oral Roberts against Duke. Oral Roberts getting hammered, +7.5, already into +7. Take that, Dinsick. Go Oral Roberts. All right.
That's fine. Hey, you know what? I think that's probably right. Duke is going to be overrated every single round, and they're probably going to win close games. That's sort of the makeup of this team. And they're going to get, that's not shocking to me, I guess. But Oral Roberts being Oral Roberts being a 12 seed is I'm not there.
I'd love to get bounced. All right, let's hit a promo and we'll close out some bigger picture thoughts. A reminder to download the Roto World app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Vaughn, get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in the App Store today. All right, let's close out with two things. One, team to get upset, and then team to go all the way. Vaughn, what do you got?
One team to go all the way. I think the Gonzaga Bulldogs are truly playing some of the best basketball of anybody right now. So I'd probably take them, and they're not a 1 seed. 1 seeds have won the last 5 years. So I'll take a 3 seed. And team to get upset in the first round, Jay. I think I have to take Louisiana over Tennessee or Santa Barbara over Baylor. I'm gonna give you 2. Those would be my 2 picks there. But I do like Drew's look at Drake over Miami. I'll probably have to take that one as well. So I cheated and took 3.
What have you got?
Dinsick? I'm gonna take the upset. Yeah, I'm gonna take the upset of the number 10 seed Boise State Broncos over the number 7 seed Northwestern. No, that's not how upsets work, guys. No, I think Drake catching points against Miami is a slam. I mentioned Kent State against Indiana as well. And then, upsets galore in the South. You really couldn't talk me off of any of those. UCSB, probably the best bet of the bunch at +11. And then team to go all the way. Boy, I'm pretty upset that they put Gonzaga and UConn in the same region. Yeah. Because that is your Elite Eight matchup in the West. The way I look at these teams in terms of quality of recent play and just their overall makeup. Vaughn went Gonzaga. I'll go UConn. I think the Huskies are best team in the country. They showed you some highs earlier this season that were clearly, I thought, the best of what we saw all season. And then they found their form to end the season despite a tough loss in the Big East tournament to Marquette. So UConn looks prime to me to be your ultimate champion here. And we'll say they beat, the others, the left half of the bracket is just weak. I think whoever wins the West is your champion, really. Everybody, if you can figure out who wins the West, I think you got your winner.
Okay.
What about you, Jay?
I'm going to say, everyone's favorite paper tiger, Baylor, gets bounced in round 1 by Drew's UC Santa Barbara. That 11-point line, it's already moving towards 10 as we speak. So it'll be single digits by the time that we get off. My pick was going to be UConn, but since you've taken that, I'm going to go with Texas. I'm going to go with Texas at +1400.
Yeah.
I think that, I've watched a lot of Texas basketball this season. I think that they're rounding into form. I know that Kansas didn't have much to play for, but the way that they handled them. And also, the game against TCU is completely done, and they closed pretty strong there. And I think that they are rounding into form, and I don't think they have the hardest bracket from early investigation. So I'll go Texas at +1400. All right, it's enough basketball chat. Close out with some baseball. A reminder of all the new rules being implemented in Major League Baseball, impacting fantasy baseball. It is more important than ever to get your Roto World Baseball Draft Guide. Find all the player profiles, rankings, and projections you need. Drew, to hit your draft out of the park, go to NBC Sports EDGE.com/draft guide and use Pennant25 to save 25% at checkout, and go bet on Chris Sale to win the AL Cy Young at 150 for Sale.
I thought you were going to tell us. I thought you had the script for the World Baseball Classic, and you were going to tell us who wins the World Baseball Classic. No, save that for later this week.
No, absolutely not. And just before we wrap up, any thoughts on snubs, Vaughn, and the first 4?
Oh, man. To be honest, I thought this was a pretty correct seeding. The fact that Pitt was in the first 4 playing games was pretty interesting to me. I thought, I didn't think Rutgers deserved to be in. I didn't think Michigan, Wisconsin deserved to be in. Neither Oregon, these type of teams. So I feel like the committee actually did a really good job, and everyone that should have been in pretty much made it in. So I have no complaints, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Same. I think they nailed it. And, credit because committees in years past would put UNC in over Pitt and not even think twice.
Didn't even mention UNC because it wasn't even a thought.
Yeah, they didn't do it. Like, there was no reach. Syracuse isn't anywhere. Like, that was typically the what the heck moment where Syracuse is in as a 10 seed, and you're like, what? They weren't even close. But no, they didn't really do anything that I thought was that outrageous. And to be honest with you, if this is a new era where the committee is, more inclined to tack into some of the advanced analytics to make their decisions, then hallelujah. Like, this is very cool. And if it's like the people with the eye test who are complaining about the snubs, then that's much more fun than the people who, have a realistic statistical case for why their team's not in and they should be. So I thought this was a very fair bracket. It's just not very balanced because all the good teams are in the West.
Yeah, I think just overall in all these types of things now, the right decisions are just arrived at more frequently, just because there's so much more, one, information available, and then two, just kind of group think and consensus building because of how information is spread on Twitter. And if you're wrong, like, you can't just vote Jason Tatum MVP anymore. Like, you can't do that because everyone knows it's wrong. And so, yeah, I think that's probably helped, formed what we're going to look at. All right, that wraps it up for us. We'll be back. Well, we're doing this Sunday night. We'll be back Tuesday. A reminder to check out NBCSportsEdge.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks, everyone watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to subscribe. And from Jay Croucher, Drew Dinsick, and at VMoney Sports, Vaughn Dalzell. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and we'll be back soon.